Um, okay, so negative space and positive space. Typically, when we draw a picture, we are naturally going to focus on the positive space. Let me explain first of all what it is. So if I am drawing a chair, so let's say I'm drawing a picture of my chair, what I'm doing is I will naturally focus on the chair itself. And we call that the positive space. The positive space is, and that's just how we are as humans, we focus on, this is, well, what is possible? We focus on what we see. But I find it remarkable. And to me, I just don't think it's just coincidence between all of how this all works, of how because in a sense, the negative space is the invisible that's in between. And it's the part, and I find it remarkable how in life, even God calls us to focus on the invisible, right? That which is unseen. And in art, when we can get ourselves to really focus on the in between and give as much attention to that, and in some cases even more, then the work that we create will even be more powerful. Now, this is a rough, quick, poor drawing. My perspective is all off, but I just did this quickly to explain to you what I mean by negative space. Now, as I'm drawing this, I'm focusing on the base of the chair, the back, the spindles on the back, and I focus on the legs and these going across. And what has actually happened in my example, without meaning to, but it totally brings out the point. When I only focus on the positive, which is the part that I see, the legs of the chair, I actually end up with everything very distorted. Because what I did not focus on, and I'm going to grab a colored pencil or something here. Maybe I can use a marker. Because what I was not focusing on was the negative space and giving any attention to that, to the spaces in between. And these spaces in between and the shape of them and the look of that is just as important. And in many ways, it can even in some cases become more important, because when those shapes are done accurately and they're put in the right place, it will move and reposition properly everything that we see, which is the legs. And so we need to teach ourselves as an artist to focus on and give attention to the stuff that just seems negative, that seems to be the invisible, that seems to be the stuff that is not important. And when we learn to give as much or more, and like I said, or more sometimes, attention to this, getting all of that lined up, getting all of that in its proper place, the positive, which is what we can see, will fall right into place, and we will have a much more beautiful, much more accurate type of drawing. To me, that's just way too coincidental that applies to life, doesn't it? When we give attention only to what we see, and we try to order things by that and ignoring the negative that is happening and not giving that attention, or trying to avoid it, or the invisible, however we want to look at it, as the negative. I find it interesting that we even apply that term, the negative, to what is happening. Things are out of order. So that just struck me, Alice, as you were talking about this and going over this, and I was just struck with the sense, and this is not just only for Alice, I don't mean to keep putting you on the spot, but for all of us, just in in life, in art, because as we create our lives and seeing our own life as a work of art, and that's really how I see it, that we are artists living, creating our life. Like God invites us to create our own lives with him. He didn't just, create our whole life for us. And that's the whole strange, remarkable thing about free will. And yet, we make our plans, but God directing our steps. But to step into what seems negative and to bring beauty into that. So, and then this went and struck me as we were praying. Okay, I'm going to share the screen here because so I have these couple of documents that I gave you guys about how to practice negative space drawing. So let me share the screen here a second. And so I pulled up these, and what I wanted to do was to take, can you guys see this drawing of this, what's called the baobab tree? Or the photograph? Can you guys see that on your screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was looking for a thumbs up from someone. Drawing trees is one of a really, really good way of practicing negative space. So here's some examples here of drawing negative space. You don't draw, instead of focusing on the tree, the trunks, the leaves, you focus on the remarkable, fascinating shapes in between. And that's the negative space. It's what they've created as the black, and voila, a tree appears. They've not, in none of these cases have they drawn the tree. They've drawn and given all their attention, or drawn the plant, they've given all their attention to the space in between. So as I was praying, when we were listening to the song, and as I was praying, and it's not fully making sense to me.
I think I understand what you're saying, and when you're teaching on this and talking, what I'm picking up on is that the negative isn't really negative. Without that, you can't have the positive.
Yeah.
And then like for a small example would be maybe somebody comes to me and says, oh, I'm so bummed out, Alice, my son went to prison, and it's everything's so terrible. And I'm thinking to myself, well, is it really terrible? Like, is your son going to give his life to Jesus in prison? Because if he is, then it was all worth it. You know what I mean? Like, It's not necessarily a negative. And then also when you go through hard times, like a diamond is created through the pressure, right? Or gold is refined through the fire. Like, it takes that negative to make the positive positive. That's what I got.
Yeah. And so I think it's just probably because, to me, you're clearly already doing, not God telling you, Alice, you need to start doing this because you already are, but just maybe an encouragement that you doing that already is having an impact, and is already just adding so much beauty to your life and what's going on. And so when I decided to pray, to start drawing, as we were listening in prayer for your healing, I started focusing on this tree, and then I decided, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to focus on all of this beautiful negative space through here. And then I was struck by, and again, I don't know if there's anything to this, but again, one of these crazy coincidences that a baobab tree in nations is used as a place of witchcraft. That's exactly where they meet to do witchcraft, at the foot of these baobab trees. And so I just, as I was drawing and praying, I only had the few minutes against that. So taking the power away from, it's not the baobab tree, which is a beautiful thing, but I don't know, somehow it felt there was something in all of that. And so this was actually what I was ending up creating. So just giving, and I didn't get very far. And it almost looks like a heart, but anyway.
Yeah, that's nice.
something, you know, to that. So anyway,
Cool.
so the practice is today. Let me go back to the screen share to this document. If I switch documents, did it switch for you guys? Can you see the other one where you can now see it looks like a wheelchair? Yeah. Okay. So negative space again. So just give you a little bit of the teaching here. As I'm showing you, is to point, is to focus on the parts in between. Now, this is a real challenge to even try to get yourself to take your focus completely off the positive and pretend that the positive is not actually there, but all that exists is the negative. And what it does is it helps go from this, so this is where negative space is not considered, to this. There's still a few distortions in here, but by trying to ignore that any of this exists and all that exists is in between, it actually takes a whole shift in your brain to be able to pull it off, okay? But it's such a really good practice. So the idea is not to be able to create these types of drawings. That's not the end result. They do turn out pretty cool, don't they? The end result is to improve rather just your normal regular type drawing, okay? So in the same way, just in our life, the whole idea of focusing on the negative is not to become this sort of emo goth, you know, focus on the dark, and, you know, that's not the point, right? That God tells us to focus on that, but it's to help us make the beautiful more beautiful. So I've given you this document just because it has 4 different possibilities that you could work from that have really, you know, great negative space shapes in here. So your challenge is, and it's a total shift from the left brain to the right brain of, you know, let's say if you're doing this plant, can you shift and pretend this green does not exist? All that exists are these white spaces, these white shapes, and then how do they relate to each other? That's going to be part of the success for this to work. You have to look at how does that shape relate to that one, like in its position and its size and everything, and then all these wonderful, fantastic shapes around it. Okay, almost looks like a, you know, creature. It's a bit like the same as laying down, looking for faces in the clouds and animals and things in the clouds. It takes that shift, and it's such a good exercise for the eyes and for the brain and the mind. So anyway, so that was the plan, was to do that. Clearly, we've you know, gone, you know, past our time, but that's okay. You know, our time is just scheduled. The time is not our master. We are master over it, right? So is everyone able to access this document from WhatsApp and be able to bring that up on your phone? Okay, very good. Okay, so we'll just spend some time doing that. We'll bring that up, or I'll put up some music again. I have some instrumental from a band called Grey Havens, which I just discovered. I really like them. So.
Hey, Rick, I didn't get the stuff on WhatsApp again.
Oh man, here we go again.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for praying for me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Alice, for being patient with me with my
no worries.
Constant
No worries.
WhatsApp mess ups here.
No worries.
Rick, I didn't get exactly what we're supposed to do. So we take the picture on WhatsApp?
Yeah, so if you can access those, and if you can't, you can really just look up any picture of a tree or a plant or a chair or anything that has all of those different types of, lot of looking through type space.
Okay.
You know, like it doesn't work. Where'd you go? Where do we go for Zoom? Okay. like, you know, if we draw, let's say a vase, say, okay, if I'm going to draw a picture of a vase here, that's not a good example to use because there's no negative space inside here. The negative space is simply around it. And so you don't want to find a picture like that. You want to find a picture that has fairly complex space through it, which is why trees and these types of chairs, a bicycle would be a good one. You know, so you can just find really any type of thing like that on